Hey y'all, it's Mary Hyatt, and I am so excited you're here for this month's topic, which is all about body connection. But before we hop into today's episode, I want you to know that this month we're going to be tackling an essential question. How important is the body really to helping you live fully alive? Well, I'm here to tell you that I personally think that this might just be the missing link you have been searching for, and you weren't even aware of it. This month, we're going to be exploring the crucial role the body plays in our physical, emotional, and spiritual healing from so many different angles. So without further ado, let's jump into it.
Welcome to the Living Fully Alive podcast with Mary Hyatt, here to help you find your authentic voice, learn how to love yourself, and embrace your life. And now, your host, life and mindset coach, body love advocate, and doTERRA Presidential Diamond, Mary Hyatt.
Hey y'all, it is Mary, and I am so excited about today's episode. I gotta say, this is gonna be really fun for me. I am excited because today is our first episode of the new month's topic, which is all about body connection. And I know that for me, this is something that I have studied a lot. I've had a lot of experience around. I've done a lot of research around. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, just the body. I've done a lot of work around body image, learning to make peace with our bodies. But the more I've researched and started to dig into how our brains work, this whole connection between our reality and our minds and our emotions and our body, and this interplay of how it all works together is absolutely fascinating to me. And so in today's episode, we're really going to get into talking about this mind-body connection, because I want to set up a framework for you, a foundational framework for you to allow us to go deeper as the month goes on. We'll kind of talk about foundational stuff today, and then Lindsley and I will get into some stuff next week and have an amazing special guest the following week. And we're just going to kind of take it layer by layer by layer. But we have to start with the mind-body connection. And as Danielle Laporte says, your body knows before your mind does. Y'all, everything originates in the body. Your body manifests all of your emotions and your thoughts all the time. There is truly a very powerful mind-body connection. We have to understand that how we feel and how our body processes those emotions are directly related. They cannot exist without one another. You cannot feel without your body responding. And what's amazing is that your body has a sensation, physical sensation, before you can actually sort of catch up cognitively and put that sensation into a word that describes the emotion. And for today's conversation, we're kind of going to do like a, sort of flyby description of all of this, because I feel like I could write an entire book about this. And honestly, there have been a lot of books written about this that get into all the science and the brain chemistry. And for now, I'll just leave it to those people. But I want to really kind of slow down and look at this connection to our bodies so that we can really learn how to be fully alive in our physical bodies, to accept and to love them. And my experience has been in my own life, certainly, and then just as I work with my personal one-on-one coaching clients, it's just a theme that pops up over and over again, that we, and I think as women, but I think just generally speaking, we have been taught how to silence and numb and avoid and ignore our feelings and our body sensations. We drink, we drug, we eat, we work, we shop, we fixate, and we become disassociated with our bodies. And this happens oftentimes through emotional or physical trauma. The physical or emotional pain is oftentimes so intense, and we aren't given the skills to cope. So we shut down, we disconnect with the body, and the body becomes avoided at all costs. And we're just sort of reinforced this kind of disconnection from our body through shame, through how we were raised. Oftentimes, we have been raised to see the body as separate and as an enemy. And so what we do is anytime we've been through something that's emotionally overwhelming to ourselves, in order to guard us against any more pain, of course, it's going to close us off from any kind of pleasure as well, because pain and pleasure are both coming from the body. We shut ourselves off to the body. And when we're not integrated into our body, we don't really get to enjoy life. It's like a whole chunk of our experience is missing. And it allows us and sort of creates this separation from our bodies. And we see our bodies, we make our bodies our enemy. We blame them, we abuse them. We certainly don't want to even be in them, which is so understandable. I mean, I think we have to have so much compassion for our experiences and why we do this, and our just lack of awareness around this issue. It's not anything that we are intentionally doing. It just happens. And I think that in this healing journey, we learn how, or we can learn how to make peace with that, make peace with what's happening inside of us, even though it kind of feels counterintuitive to go back to the body to heal, because typically we're trying to escape the body. But in order to heal, whether that's emotionally or physically or spiritually, we have to come back to the body. We have to anchor into the body. The body, our physical body, is the key to our healing. And oftentimes we're just typically looking at, okay, go to therapy. And we really only sort of treat our beings as cognitive. Just talk it out, talk it out, talk it out. But one of the things that has been so healing for me is to understand the importance the body plays in our role of healing. And I know that for me, when I was at a place where I was super sick, incredible anxiety and depression, debilitating, a lot of just unexplained physical pain. I had endometriosis. I was getting sick all the time. I was exhausted. I had, chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue. I had hypothyroidism. I was 240 pounds. And I was so disassociated from my body. It was like, these are all things that are happening. So I just kept taking more pills and more pills and more pills, trying to cover that up with the Band-Aid, not understanding that there was this whole thing happening inside of me, and that was just this manifestation. And it wasn't until I, at 240 pounds, decided to take my first yoga class, and I started to get into my body again. I started to breathe. I started to hear and listen what was coming up emotionally. Instead of just talking it out, I was getting in my body. And I don't often talk about my yoga experience, and I think I'm going to start actually talking about it a lot more, because I think it's integral. And it brought me back to life. That connection with my body, it was like the missing link. Like, I started doing things that were really helpful. I mean, I was in therapy. I had hired a coach. I was using essential oils, all kind of addressing the cognitive and physical things. But once I got into my actual physical body itself, that is when the shift took place. It was like able to bring all of those things together. And so when we do that, when we anchor back into the body, over time we can learn our body's language so that we can befriend our bodies again, instead of seeing them as the enemy. And using our bodies to further this journey of living fully alive, our body connects us to our own wisdom. And so to me, I really believe that in order for emotional healing to take place, we have to do more than just talk about our feelings. We have to actually process them through the body, because our traumas, and I don't mean that it has to be a huge big T trauma. It could be a little T trauma where we felt unheard or unseen or neglected in some way, or manipulated or shamed. Those are all little T traumas. Those get stored inside of our bodies. And it's not until we go back into the body and process through them, it's like that part of our brain where that lives, we can't even address it when we're using traditional talk therapy. And there's a place for talk therapy. I love it. I see a therapist all the time. She's amazing. But there is something to be said for getting in the body to help us release those stored and trapped emotions that cognitive processing cannot address. Our physical sensations are the foundation to emotional awareness. And once we tap back into the body, a whole new experience of life unfolds. We'll get into more of the sort of like how to do that, how to tap back into the body later this month. But we need to set the foundation first. So In order to truly embody our whole being and be online, be awake, to live fully alive, we need to understand and grasp 3 truths about our bodies. Okay, these are just like foundational truths that we can sort of, once we get these, then we can walk into the practicality later through the following episodes this month of like how we actually do that. But we got to start somewhere. So the first truth is that we have a powerful mind-body connection. There is this powerful, amazing book called Eastern Body, Western Mind. And in it, it says, to lose our connection with the body is to become spiritually homeless. Without an anchor, we float aimlessly, battered by the winds and waves of life. Our mind and our body are powerfully connected. They work together, whether you are aware of that connection or not. And we have to kind of get into our bodies and realize that there is this kind of connection. And so we can look at some of the most basic common sense examples of how the body and the mind work together. For example, worry and stress can cause ulcers. Emotional fear can cause physical panic attacks. Our physical body responds to our inner beliefs, our thoughts, our feelings, and our attitudes. And when we can change these things, it changes our physical experience of life. Our bodies are just mirroring our inner thoughts, our inner feelings. It manifests and expresses unresolved emotional issues through illnesses and disease. And I got that from Louise Hay. The first time I heard that, sort of like DIS space EASE, dis-ease. When the body is at dis-ease. And so disease does not originate from the body alone, but from the long-standing emotional and spiritual issues. Every illness that is physical also has an emotional component to it. And this was a concept that was really, really foreign to me because I was taught, like most of us, that it's just the Western way of thinking that you have a physical symptom. It just is what it is. You treat it, you cover up the symptoms, you mask the symptoms, and go on your merry way. There was never a conversation of looking at what is outside of the imbalance of cells or whatever it might be that's, showing up. It's like, what is the emotional component here? And what I have found in my own journey and what I see just, examples over and over and over again is that relief cannot come from material help alone, medicine, surgery, whatever. It's kind of only a temporary fix until the emotional root and cause is dealt with. And this is amazing because the body speaks to us all the time. Any imbalance in our emotions shows up as a physical imbalance. You cannot separate the two, whether it is acne on your face or high blood pressure or a rash on your skin or chronic headaches or cancer or whatever. It's amazing when you slow down and see that there is a connection here that our bodies is trying to communicate to us in some way. And it starts oftentimes as a whisper. Hey, pay attention. Hey, pay attention. Hey, pay attention. And then when we don't pay attention because we're so disembodied, it gets louder and louder and louder and louder and louder until we have no other choice than to listen. And so oftentimes we have a hard time describing what's happening inside of the body. And so we might know this, but it gets a little complicated because we, in our sort of fight, flight, freeze, sort of primitive reptilian mind, we want to escape the body. We want to disconnect. We want to disassociate. We want to flee. And that's reinforced by seeing, especially as women, as our body is the enemy. It's broken. There's something wrong. We need to lose weight. It's not doing what we want it to do. And so again, in that Eastern Body, Western Mind book, they say, separated from the experience of our bodies, we are separated from our aliveness, from the experience of the natural world, and from our most basic inner truth. This division creates a disassociative state. Disconnected from our body, our actions become compulsive, no longer ruled by consciousness or rooted in feelings, but fueled by an unconscious urge to bridge the gap between mind and body at whatever cost. And we've been taught that our body, our physical body, is something to be ashamed of. Or we have, like I said earlier, simply sort of left the body because of abuse or trauma or not knowing how to process what's happening in our lives emotionally. And so we stuff, we numb, we disconnect, and we haven't been taught to give ourselves the time to explore a relationship to our body and that we are actually relating to the world through our body. And so then after years of numbing these body sensations, it's also really muffled our everyday sensory experiences, like listening to music, recognizing that our body is constantly brushing up against things, feeling that, like what it feels like to sit in a chair, feeling a strong breeze on your face, the sound of rain coming down, or even being aware to the fluctuation of light, all of which help to enhance our relationship with life. We talked a lot about the senses last month when we talked about pleasure. And so the amazing thing is that when we can get back into our bodies and recognize this mind-body connection, we invite ourselves into a really powerful and sensual relationship with the world and ourselves. Lindsley and I are going to be talking about how to live a life of embodiment next week. And so we'll sort of get into more of that then. But when we anchor into the body, it allows us to be mindful and reflective before we just go to act and behave and those reactions take over. Our bodies, our physical bodies, are what grounds us into the here and now. It gives us a little bit of space to pause before we unconsciously behave and respond and habituate and react. This mind-body connection is such a gift to us. The body can point us back to saying, hey, wait a minute. Okay, if this is showing up in my body, then something must be happening in my unconscious mind that I need to take a look at. There's something that is asking for my attention. There is some emotion here that is speaking to me, and it's showing up in a physical sensation. And that's a little bit like a roadmap to me. Anytime I see something that is showing up physically, it's like, okay, that's the invitation to slow down and to ask myself, what's happening unconsciously? It's like if I get a migraine, there's a reason, probably related to stress or to fear or anxiety or panic, that is creating this physical experience of this migraine. But the physical sensation, I can recognize that, and it can draw me back into paying attention to the root of what's going on. Now, I know that this is sort of like a whole paradigm shift for some of you. I know that it was for me when I started reading all these books about it. And it was so, just like powerful for me. It just clicked for me. I became sort of obsessed with this new paradigm. And I was reading books from Louise Hay and Dr. Joe Dispenza and Bessel van der Kolk. And it really helped me understand in a deeper way that there is this mind-body connection. But it's also echoed throughout history. I mean, you can go and find ancient teachers from these Eastern ways of approaching medicine in the body, like a Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine, which is this healing modality of the Vedic culture from India, said to be like 2,000 to 5,000 years old. But both of these traditions teach that our body gives us an unbiased window to our attitudes and our feelings and our beliefs. It's just mirroring our internal state. And so only by acknowledging that there is both a physical and emotional issue happening that are connected, intertwined, that is when we're able to fully heal. When we recognize the internal and the external, then we can deal with what's coming up, the root of what is showing up as a physical issue in our bodies. Whether that's digestive problems, back pain, anxiety, sudden weight gain, chronic headaches. And I know this maybe sounds woo-woo, but as you begin to research this more, if this is something that's like, oh, I like this is really interesting, it's pretty cool to see all the actual research that's being done to, really explain what other cultures besides the West has known for thousands and thousands of years. And so I want to give you a tangible example in my own life. I want to share something kind of vulnerable with you guys because this is really what allowed me to heal and what got me into this, really started this whole journey. So This was, oh God, I don't know. Let's see, doing the math. 13, no. Yeah, 13, 14 years ago now. Gosh, that's so crazy. It's like, okay, yeah, I like had frozen that time. But so I was newly married to who now is my ex-husband. But at the time, my husband and I became caretakers of his 2-year-old nephew who was diagnosed with neuroblastoma. And we were like married like 3 or 4 months. Okay. His father came and moved in with us. We were the ones at the hospital who shaved our little baby's head when all the chemo started. And it was just so intense and emotional. We were newly married and it was just a lot going on. And so he's 2 years old, he gets diagnosed, and we were basically he and I both were caretakers of him, and he ended up passing away at 4 years old. And shortly after that, let me just pause and say the trauma, the chronic trauma over years of dealing with this. And I was 20 years old, 21, 22 years old, and newly married, didn't have the skill set. We were broke. There's so much going on. And it was traumatic. I mean, we were in the room with him, with his body after he passed, and I'm just like, oh, I mean, I can just start weeping thinking about it right now. And so, shortly after, I was diagnosed with endometriosis. And I'm talking, I mean, super intense endometriosis. I couldn't figure out what was wrong. Finally went to the doctor, had surgery, got it diagnosed. And it's like, of course, now that I know what I know and can understand this relationship with our body. At the time, I didn't have the skills to process that trauma or those emotions. Like, I didn't have anybody walking me through any kind of grief counseling, trauma counseling, none of that. I mean, it was just like, you just figure it out and you just show up and you do the best you can do. But of course, the illness presented itself in my womb, right where all of that grief was being stored. And it was so painful. I mean, I spent years on pain medication and anti-nausea medicine and endured massive pain every month, canceled everything that I ever had scheduled during my period. I mean, it was horrible. And like I said, once I kind of understood this mind-body connection, it was no surprise that this is where this dis-ease showed up. And it was just like all of these layers, and I started gaining all of this weight in addition to the endometriosis, putting on all of these layers and layers and layers of protection and trying to create this softness inside of me where I had hardened. And I shut down. I mean, this is the beginning to the reason I even embarked on this journey of living fully alive is because I was so shut down. I had so much anxiety. I had panic attacks all the time, depression. I mean, it was like showing up in all these different ways, but it was like, of course it's in my womb. There's no mistake. I didn't get some other thing. It was like, that's where it showed up. And as I started to learn how our bodies speak to us, the language of my body in particular, where my body was storing these things that I didn't know how to deal with, where I was physically stuffing my emotions into my muscles and fascia and tissues, it was like, wow, I was unable to process then. And so what happened is because I didn't move any of that emotional trauma through my body, it got stuck in my body and showed up as this disease. And man, it's so incredible when you begin to recognize this connection. And in that in that book, Eastern Body, Western Mind, it says, I believe that ultimately emotions have a spiritual function as the language of the soul. This language is spoken through the body. We can think of sensations as the words, feelings as the sentences, and emotions as the paragraphs. These building blocks are the primary levels of our existence through which our story unfolds, giving us meaning. Meaning integrates our felt sensations of experiencing the world. And so when we don't deal with the emotional issues, it gets backed up. It creates energetic blocks that influences our health. And we'll talk a lot about that more in depth with our special guest this month, a functional wellness doctor, Dr. Christopher Motley. Oh my gosh, you guys are in for a huge treat. So fun and just blow your mind kind of information. But there's a book that I love. It's called The Body Heals Itself, written by Emily Francis. And she says, when emotional pains aren't processed and dealt with completely, they lie dormant in the body until there is no room for them in the sock drawers of our souls, and they must come out. Unfortunately, these sleeping monsters generally come forward through physical pain or illness. This is the emotional root of dis-ease. Illness is the final way that your body or our body lets us know that we are out of sync. Before it gets to the point where the emotional pain manifests itself into something physical, the body sends all kinds of warning signals in an attempt to alert us to the fact that our body and soul are in need of attention. So we'll talk about this later in the month about how much information, like our emotions and our trauma, are stored inside of the muscles and our organs and our tissues. I mean, it will truly, like, mic drop, blow your mind moment. But as long as you understand this first truth, we have a mind-body connection. That is our starting point. Hey y'all, I just wanted to interrupt this episode real quick to remind you to subscribe to this podcast. I know that emails get lost in your spam folder, so subscribing means my episodes come right to your phone. So go ahead, hit that quick little subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of the Living Fully Alive episodes. Plus, in addition to subscribing to the podcast, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. I don't know if you know this, but I have been releasing guided meditations every Monday over on YouTube, and you're not going to hear them here. So if you've been wanting to start an easy meditation practice, subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on my short 15-minute guided meditations. All right, now back to this week's episode. And so the third truth is that we have 3 bodies. This is where it gets fun, y'all. It's pretty freaking amazing. And it's our bodies are created in such a phenomenal way. We are not just a body. There are layers to our body. We are incredibly complex. And of course, we understand that we have a body. We're in a body right now. But there are some other elements in play that I don't think, I don't know, you may be conscious of it, but most people aren't conscious of it yet, especially because most of us have been raised in our Western culture. We aren't taught these things. It's not part of our cultural wisdom. In the West, we don't have the language for what's happening energetically in the body. I mean, sure, we're starting to understand that we have these emotions and our beliefs and thoughts that are happening inside of our bodies, especially if you're a therapist or a coach. You might even have more understanding of this than the average person. Or if you were raised in the church, you kind of have this concept of the soul or the spirit of a person. But even then, it really is kind of a foreign concept. We wouldn't use words like spiritual body, life force energy, chi, prana. These are all Eastern words. But y'all, the East and the West are both correct. And when we can combine the wisdom from both of these traditions and begin to see the interplay of all of our bodies together, it's like, whoa. I mean, you suddenly understand how wonderfully and perfectly you are made. So the first body we have is our physical body. Y'all, this is the one we know. We get this in the West. This is what we think of when we think of our body. This is our tissues and our muscles and our bones and our blood, our organs, our eyes, our hands, our skin, our toes, our physical body. And as Emily Francis says, she says, it is what we see, touch, and move. It is the vessel we spend this entire life in. It is our current storehouse for our soul. Our body is our temple. Now, I have such a passion for helping women make peace with their body, with helping women learn how to love their physical body and their physical body image. And it's amazing. It's so important to make peace with that. And our body, our physical body, requires things like food and water, and nutrients and oils and supplements and movement. And so when we're looking at attending to the needs of our physical body, and again, this is just one of the 3, but when we're looking at the physical body, we can begin to ask ourselves, what do I need to come back into more balance with my physical body? Treating it with more love and respect. What is my physical body asking for? Am I tired? Am I thirsty? Am I hungry? When we can kind of slow down to address the physical, needs of our body, that's really sort of the first step. Like that's usually the thing that we notice first often. Oh, I'm so exhausted, or my muscles are sore from working out. I need to take an Epsom salt bath. Or, oh my gosh, I've got a headache. I need to run some peppermint oil, on my temples. Or, man, my feet hurt from a long day. We kind of had this idea of our physical body, but that is just one of our bodies that make up the totality of the body. The second is our mental and emotional body. So beyond just our physical body, we also have a mental and emotional body. I'm going to lump these together for the sake of this conversation because I think they're kind of like interchangeable. But we have this mental process where we are thinking, we're having thoughts, we're creating beliefs, and all of this is connected to our emotions, how we feel about what we're thinking and believing, the vibration of our emotions. There is this interconnectedness. They play off of each other. This is our unconscious and our conscious constantly sort of sending out signals into the physical body that cause us to have some kind of physical reaction like fight, flight, or freeze. And so when we aren't paying attention and processing, accepting, and releasing these emotions, they get stored in the physical body. They show up as pain and illness and emotional imbalance or dis-ease. And so we have to understand that in our body, we're having an emotional experience of life. We're having a mental experience of life alongside of having a physical experience of life. So you can think physical is all of our physical body. And then we have this emotional, mental experience, what we're thinking about it, how we're feeling about it. Really, really important. And then lastly, the third body that we have, and this is the one that we talk probably the least about, is our energetic body. The place where I learned about this first was when I was doing my yoga teacher training, which was based in Eastern philosophy. And I was just like, what? Like I don't even have like any reference point for this. And so when I think about the energetic body, putting it in the simplest second grader terms, it's the part of us that can feel energy when you walk into a room. Like, this is like something's off here, or like, I just feel really calm. Or that unexplainable peace that you get when you're at the ocean, just experiencing the energetic experience of your environment. Or it's when you feel a person's vibe and you have that like instant connection and rapport with somebody and you don't really know why, you just met them. Or you're super turned off by somebody and you have just met them and you don't know why. You can sense the spirit, that kind of idea, like the spirit of somebody. Like she's a really like joyful spirit. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the energetic body. Oftentimes we can describe it as these unexplainable hunches. But it's almost like this electrical current that runs through your body. The energetic body also affects our physical body. There is, again, this interplay. It's all connected. The Eastern traditions, again, have a language for this energetic current in our bodies. And when you think of energy workers or acupuncturists or Chinese medicine, they're all working on the energy body, our life force, this current. And the words that we use to describe this kind of energy, like the definition of different kinds of energy bodies, would be like, number one, the aura. Aura. Tomato. AURA. And this is the energy patterns that surround the body as an energy field. And there are ways that you can enhance this, make it stronger. There are ways where this is broken. And you can usually sense unconsciously the aura of somebody, that kind of energetic field that they're giving off. Then you have meridian channels that run through the body. And this is like an energy current throughout the whole body that, think of it sort of like a hose. And there are all these channels, different channels. It's sort of like the bloodstream carrying blood to the different parts of the body. And so anytime that there are blockages here or kinks in the hose, stagnated energy, that's when you see these physical symptoms that pop up, is when there is something off about the meridians in the body. They all coordinate and relate to the organs of the bodies and to our emotions. And again, Dr. Motley is going to help us really get into that and break it down for us, because that's something that you study for a long time, but that's like that Chinese medicine stuff. And then the third way to access and understand the energy body is through the chakra systems. Chakras system. Chakra. And so Emily Francis describes it this way. She says, the body has 7 chakras. These are the main energy centers in the body that store emotions. When we say things like, he broke my heart, we know instinctively that we are talking about the heart chakra, the energetic heart. We know that we are not discussing the actual pericardium. We have always known the heart has 2 specific entities, as the emotional part of ourselves, but also as a specific organ in the body with 4 chambers. So when we're talking about these energy centers, we're talking about the kind of the symbolic part of our bodies rather than the actual physical organs and tissues and muscles. So those are the 3 bodies. We've got our physical, we've got our mental and emotional, and then we've got our energetic or spiritual. And when we talk about this mind-body connection, it's important to sort of start there, to understand that we have 3 bodies all working together, all interconnected. All right, so the third truth in our foundational sort of learning today is that our bodies communicate to us in many ways. So when we inhabit this body with awareness, we begin to understand the root of our reactivity. You begin to see what emotions you might be avoiding, but that your body is still processing. You know, we can experience our physical body experiencing life, even though we're not even aware of it. And what I love is thinking of the body as a she, giving it a personification. She has her own unique language. She has her own needs. She has her own wounds. She has her own history. And in order to be able to really listen, we have to honor her voice. We have to build trust with her. And we do that by believing what she is telling us. Something as simple as your body asking for water when it's feeling dehydrated, that is an opportunity to build trust and to show kindness. Like, okay, thank you. Yes, body, I hear you. I hear that you're thirsty. Let me go get you some water. Or when we're feeling depleted, asking our bodies what they need. Slowing down and honoring the message that we receive. Maybe your body was asking for a bath or for some essential oils or for a full meal or a nap or to scream, to let go and process out an emotion through the body, or to ask for forgiveness or to release or to let go. Or maybe your body just wants some loving kindness and empathy. I hear you. I see you. I hear you. I see you. And your body will tell you what it needs. Our job is to ask and to listen and honor the answer and to offer it what it needs. But our bodies are communicating to us in many ways. I think 2 main ways. Number 1, through our intuition. This is a huge way to experience your body's wisdom. That knowing, that gut feeling, when you just know what we are supposed to do, even when it seems crazy or irrational, that gut feeling, that knowing is one way that our body is communicating to us all the time. It's saying, hey, pay attention. Hey, get out of here. Hey, move towards this. Yes or no. That's our body's intuition. Second way our bodies talk to us is through its sensations. All of our reactions to people, to situations are actually physical sensations arising in our body. When we become sort of triggered by certain things, when we are reactive to life, when we are attracted to somebody, all of these thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are actually starting in the body as a sensation. We're responding to a physical sensation like a twitch, a physical actual sensation, hot, cold, tingling, tightness, heaviness, pain, twitching. Those little like subtle ways our body communicates to us then create like a bigger reaction, a more of a conscious reaction. But it starts in the body. And we can begin to become more aware of these sensations and observe what's happening in the body and observe how this makes us want to react. Because when we begin to observe, what's amazing is this is what gets us back in the body. Not just using our cognitive mind to describe what's happening, like I have pain in my back, but actually feeling that pain. What is that pain outside of just saying the word pain? Maybe it's pressure. Maybe it's throbbing. Maybe it's a shooting sensation. Maybe it's heat. Sitting with that, feeling it, bringing in some light, using our breath on the exhale to soften, meeting that pain with some acceptance instead of resistance. I did a beautiful meditation about this on my YouTube channel. If you haven't gone over to YouTube, go subscribe to my YouTube channel because I put out a guided meditation every single Monday. And I did one on accepting the pain, where you can just allow it to be and start to notice what happens in the body when you allow the pain to be there, how it loosens and softens just by accepting the sensation. Tara Brach says, as our muscles contract around the pain and our stories identify it as the enemy, the pain solidifies into a self-perpetuating, immovable mass. Our resistance can actually end up creating new layers of symptoms and suffering. Perhaps the judgments and worries that tightened my muscles against the pain increased my exhaustion. When we abandon our body for our fear-driven stories about pain, we trap the pain in our body. Woo! How freaking profound is that? And the same process happens when the pain's emotional, when we resist the unpleasant sensations of loneliness, sorrow, anger. It just traps them in our body. But when we can begin to see them as a physical sensation, a vibration, something kind of almost even outside of ourselves, it's not us, it's just a sensation. We can hang in that sensation, we can feel it, and we can move the sensation out of our bodies. And so these messages that we're receiving, the way our body communicates to it, the symptoms of illness or distress, and our feelings are ways that our body is communicating to us. So the invitation is not to suppress or deny or rage against the messenger, our body, the messenger, but to slow down and to hear our body speaking, to respect its voice, to listen, to honor it, to validate it. And we'll talk about that in another episode. But this is the foundation to what we're going to be talking about for the rest of this month's topic of this body connection. We got to start here. We have to have that framework of these three truths. And to be honest, I mean, I could do like an entire whole separate podcast probably on this topic. I just am so geeked out about it. But the information, the knowledge on this connection is vast. But I encourage you to start becoming curious about this mind-body connection. Because if we are to live fully alive, we have to grasp that there is this connection, that we cannot just put Band-Aids on things, but to heal, to come back to life, we have to address the root. And we can do that in such a powerful way through the wisdom of the body. Whew, y'all, that is a lot for one episode. I'm excited to break this down further as we move through this month. And join me next week with Lindsay. We're going to talk about embodiment and how that looks, what it is, trying to define it, give you guys a context for what that even means to come back to the body, to embody your body. And it's going to be a really great conversation. So until then, remember, the purpose of life is to be grateful, to be great, and to be full. All right, Lindsay and I will see y'all next week. Bye. If you loved today's episode, make sure to share it with your girlfriends and invite them into the conversation of this month's topic of body connection. And if you want to keep the discovery journey going of living more fully alive, check out all my past episodes from this podcast over at maryhyatt.com/show. Plus, you'll be able to grab the show notes for this episode along with the essential oil recipe of the month. Again, that's maryhyatt.com/show. All right, y'all, see you next week.